Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross. We kind of have a breaking news situation that we wanted to bring you. We've modified our regularly scheduled programming to bring you this topical and timely update on immigration and visas. We're actually, I'm really proud actually to welcome to the show Justin Parsons. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Ben. How about you?
I'm great. And Justin Parsons is the managing director of Erickson Immigration Group, and you're based in DC. Is that right, Justin?
Yeah, we're in DC, just in Arlington, so just right across from the river.
Awesome. And you've had a pretty busy 24 hours, I would say, right?
Yeah, I mean, we joke in the office that the past 3 years under the current administration has been, more or less a decade, just in terms of dealing with all the immigration changes. And the one yesterday was, I would say it's perhaps the biggest change so far of the administration, just from an immigration perspective.
Let's give people just a moment to filter in before we get too deep into it. Let's go ahead and see how folks are doing on LinkedIn here. Chiming in there. All right, we got some folks chiming in. Let's get some shout outs real quick. What's up, Jamie? Hi, Ben and Justin. Cheers from Stormy, Mississippi. Hey, Jamie. Mary Ellen Tratina. Hello. Hi, Mary Ellen. Molly Feldman from Jax. What's up, Molly? We got 27 people on LinkedIn, 28 watching. Hey, go ahead and hit that like, hit that round of applause for Justin. Let's give him some encouragement. We called Justin last minute, like, Justin, I need you on here right now. And he dropped everything. He's a super busy guy, managing director. So let's give him some applause there in the comments. Let's see here. Zenaida Romero checking in. Christy Broadway Saluga checking in. Georgia Angle, very interesting topic. Yeah, Georgia, this is really impactful. I mean, as we talk about global mobility as global mobility professionals, the ability for people to move cross borders is hugely important. People are coming in all over the place here. John Case from Long Island, Julia O'Connor over at IAM, International Association of Movers. What's up, Julia? John Krish. Hey, John. Laura Herring from St. Louis. Wow, people are just coming in left and right. This is fantastic. Go ahead and hit that like button, and then we'll just hop into it, everybody. Just keep and then also we have an opportunity to ask Justin questions today live. Free legal advice. I just give you guys so much value. It's incredible. This is like stuff that he would probably be charging an arm and a leg for normally. But anyway, we're getting some free legal advice here. We're just enough to be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Justin, so tell us all right now. We got a bunch of folks watching right now. Tell us what happened yesterday.
Yeah, so I would say that this has been kind of, we've been watching this for probably, the past couple of weeks. There's been rumors that, I say going back, the administration did an executive order back in April where they essentially banned anyone from applying for a green card at a foreign embassy. So it didn't impact cases, within USCIS, but anyone who wanted to apply through an employer or family base through an embassy was essentially banned, due to COVID-19. The administration's theory is that essentially by allowing immigrants in, whether it's through the green card side or the visa side, they're taking, jobs away from U.S. workers. So that's kind of the thought behind this. And then kind of fast forward to yesterday, and we've been hearing about this for several weeks now. What the administration did was they signed this executive order, which essentially stops individuals from applying for H-1B visas, L-1 visas, J-1 visas, and H-2B visas at consulates abroad. So I'd say in a nutshell, and this is what I've been telling my clients, is that it does not impact visa extension. So anyone who's here on an H-1B or an L or J from extending, it does not impact. If you're a company and you're looking to hire somebody who's on an H-1B to transfer that person over to your company, so it doesn't impact those, but it essentially impacts anyone who wants to apply for a visa stamp outside of the U.S. and try to re-enter the country. So they've talked about that this is going to open up approximately 500,000 jobs for U.S. workers. I don't see it. I think that a lot of this, from my lens, is done in the context of the election and part of the platform of the current administration.
Now, what is the disconnect there? If you don't allow the visas, the administration says it's going to open up 500,000 jobs. Why might not that work as a policy?
Well, I mean, it's going to impact anyone who's outside of the U.S. who is maybe, traveling abroad and stuck outside due to COVID-19 restrictions coming back in. But anyone who's here essentially working on a visa is not going to be impacted. So I would say it's going to impact folks, but it's a pretty narrow carved out exception for anyone who's outside of the U.S. I think with my clients, it's obviously going to impact people who've gone through the H-1B lottery. So anyone who needs to, leave the U.S. to activate their H and come back in. A lot of intercompany transfers. So somebody who's working maybe in the UK or Ireland or anywhere and essentially wants to transfer to the U.S. on an L1 visa, which is for multinational managers. So those individuals will be impacted. But just from a sheer number standpoint, I don't see that it's going to, result in 500,000 people, being kept out of the U.S. at this point.
Right. Let's see. We got some questions here. Molly Feldman, CRPGMS. Is it accurate that L visas are included in this EO?
Yeah, so L visas are included. So anyone here who's on an L can extend with the government through USCIS. But if somebody's outside of the U.S., they're not going to be able to get back in on an L. They're not going to be able to apply for an L at the consulate until after the proclamation is over, which is December 31st, 2020. And it goes into effect tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
So tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So what does that mean for tomorrow, Wednesday, June 24th, for all of our global mobility managers, our relocation management viewers, our immigration folks? I mean, what does that mean from a workload perspective for them on Wednesday?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be fewer moves, obviously, on the relo side. Obviously there was going to be fewer because of the COVID-19 restrictions, and I think people are just looking to move less. But I mean, what I've been doing the past 24 hours for our clients is pulling reports, seeing who's outside of the U.S. And I would say anyone who's in charge of a program should be doing the same thing in terms of pulling reports, determining which of your employees is impacted, who was stuck abroad due to COVID-19, which individual maybe can't get an L visa or can't activate their H-1B. And then you should really be talking to your immigration counsel to determine if there's any workarounds for this. Sometimes there may be a workaround for some of these folks, and others, we're just telling people that you may have to wait outside of the U.S. until January 1st of 2021.
What types of workarounds might exist out there?
So, I mean, there may be other visa options. For example, O1s or TNs or your E3s are not included. It's unclear if Canadians who are visa exempt are going to be impacted by this because, if you're Canadian and you want to enter on an H or an L, you don't have to apply for a visa stamp in your passport. You can just come in with the approval. So one of the questions is whether Canadians are impacted. We don't know yet. We'll see how this kind of unfolds. But I'd say one of the workarounds, aside from kind of exploring other visa options, is also if you've applied for consular notice cases, maybe you want to do a change of status if that's an option. So I would say, you'd really want to talk to your attorney to try to see if there's any sort of workarounds at this point.
Awesome advice. Let's see here. We got some more questions here. Folks are loving it. They're checking in here. They're loving the discussion. Lauren Herring, CEO of Impact Group, has a question. If someone already has a visa, can they come still?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the proclamation is only about people who are outside of the U.S. who don't possess a visa. So if you have a visa, you're in the U.S., you can travel. internationally, you can come back in. You know, we're advising our clients to be very careful about that, because we don't know how CBP is going to kind of apply the proclamation. And then if you're outside of the U.S. and you have a valid visa, you can come back in as well. So it's really just it's a carve out for those individuals who are outside of the U.S. who don't have valid visa stamps in their passport.
Good stuff. Thanks, Lauren. Ask questions, y'all. Please. Please do ask questions, because if you don't, I don't even know enough to know what to ask. So I really love the questions, everybody. Carrie Stewart has another question. If an L1 is already in the U.S. but spouse has yet to have their L2 interview, will they be able to?
It's a good question. So unfortunately, our interpretation so far of the proclamation is that L2, once obviously the embassies haven't been open due to COVID-19, and I think we're starting to see them slowly reopen, probably sometime in July or August. But this individual, if they haven't had their L2 interview, I unfortunately would say that it's probably going to be canceled to the proclamation, and the L2 individuals probably going to be stuck outside of the U.S. until the proclamation is over. So there will be situations like this where, you have spouses who, may be separated for a period of time. So that is one of the unfortunate consequences of the proclamation.
Okay.
One of the other interesting things, and I've kind of had clients start asking about this, is that there are exceptions. There are carve-outs and exemptions for companies who can demonstrate that, the person who's coming in would come in for the food supply chain in the U.S., or there's healthcare exemptions. Most of my clients are in the tech industry, so it doesn't really apply. But one of the interesting things is there's an exemption to show if you're going to be coming in and ultimately the work and your efforts in the U.S. would help the U.S. economy. So, I've had some clients reach out to me, and I have a client who, let's just say their business helps a lot of small businesses. So I think that companies like that would have a very good argument in terms of, by allowing somebody in on an H-1B or an L, it helps the economy and it helps small businesses that are impacted by COVID-19. I think those are the arguments that, myself and EIG will probably raise for our clients over the next 6 months.
Seems like you're going to be writing a lot of those types of arguments, right? That this hire is going to help the U.S. economy.
Yeah, I think, I think as I was telling one client today, with all the executive orders that this administration has done over the past 3 years, the waivers and the exemptions have been very kind of few and far between and hard to come by. But I do think because it's up to the consular officer, if you're applying for an H-1B and you can demonstrate that it's going to help the U.S. economy and kind of help it rebound, it seems like there's a bit of glimmer of hope that visa may be granted.
Awesome. Let's see here. We got some more folks checking in here. Heather from Global LT. Everybody's loving the topic right now. This is great. Let's see here. Gabrielle. Yeah, Gabrielle, if you got any questions, let us know here. Janet Turner said, are there certain industries that this rule will not apply to? Yeah.
So as I said before, there are carve-outs for the food chain supply industry, and then anyone who's coming in, to help in terms of medical doctors, anyone who's coming in to help with COVID-19, there will be exemptions for those individuals as well. As I said before, my industry that I focus on is the technology space. So, I think all of my clients will have to make some sort of argument that ultimately whatever they're going to do is going to be helping small businesses and businesses, that are owned by United States citizens recover.
Nice. Brian Rivers, shout out to First Tech Federal Credit Union in California. What is the feasibility? The December 31st deadline is extended.
Yeah. It's something else that we kind of talked about when this came out yesterday, and we were preparing our FAQs, that we sent out to all of our clients in addition to sending them a list of the impacted individuals. I'd have to say that, well, one of the statements in the proclamation is that, excuse me, the administration is going to review this order after 30 days to see where we are in the economy. And then from 60 days on after that, they're going to take a look at this to see if they want to peel anything back or add anything more. One of the things that I think that, they've talked about is, and I think that's coming this summer is, new regulations making it harder for H-1Bs, possibly eliminating the spousal work authorization for H-4s, which is the dependents for H-1Bs, possibly taking a look at students, F-1s and OPT, maybe trying to eliminate or shorten that period. So I think there's a lot that's going to happen over the next few months from an immigration perspective. I think this administration has, originally they focused on a lot of non-business immigration, and I think they really, over the past 6 to 9 months have really started focusing on with COVID-19, the impacts of the business immigration sector. So do I think it could be extended beyond December 31st? I think ultimately depends upon the election. I think if Trump wins again, I think that we'll see some sort of extension of this order, unfortunately.
Makes sense. Man, we're up to 62 people live on LinkedIn right now. It's a pretty popular topic. This is great, Justin. This is good stuff here. Let's see here. We got some more questions here. Rhiannon, are au pairs visas impacted?
Yeah, so there was a talk about that there was going to be a carve out for au pairs, and au pairs were actually they were included in there as well. So so there's the J's are interns, trainees, teachers, camp counselors, summer work programs. Originally there was talk that the news that I was hearing was that there was going to be a carve out for au pairs, and in fact there was, and it's in there. So au pairs are impacted by this. Again, anyone who's here as an au pair, you're not impacted, but any new au pairs coming over the next 6 months, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah, I think there's probably some people watching this right now. It's like, not my au pair. In the moving industry, the moving industry relies a lot of times on, help, labor that they've imported from Romania or some other things, especially there in the Beltway where the surge is incredible for the military and government moves. And I don't know if they come over on a J or what, but anyway. Let's see here. Melissa Knight says, what type of individuals and industries would be eligible for a proclamation exception?
Yeah, Melissa. So as I said before, we're looking at, folks in the, the food supply chain. I'm just looking at the exact language right now. I've probably read this 20 times since last night.
Food supply chain, though, that seems like that could be kind of broadly interpreted, though. Like, hey, I'm going to go, hey, honey, I'm going to Kroger. Am I part of the food supply chain?
Yeah.
I don't know. If I go start working for Grubhub part-time, am I part of the food supply chain? I don't know.
Yeah. There are, there are,
our software engineers have to come over on a Grubhub visa and then get a job part-time doing software.
Yeah, so I'll just read you kind of the language in terms of kind of the exemption. So it's folks who are critical to defense, law enforcement, diplomacy, national security, involved with provision of medical care to individuals who've contracted COVID-19. So this is what we kind of talked about before: doctors, researchers who are working on COVID-19, and then anyone necessary to facilitate the immediate and continued economic recovery of the United States, which is what I had kind of talked about before. It's a bit of a catch-all. Maybe you're working for a business, it's going to generate jobs. That's the argument that I would make, at least, or help small businesses. But I know that there are a lot of positions maybe that certain Americans don't want to fill, and I know that there's a lot of foreign labor. So if I was the attorney for anyone who's coming in, on an H-2B or any sort of short-term foreign labor in the food industry, I would argue that it's important to the supply chain. Maybe it's shelling crabs or working on that. Those are the arguments that I would make, and obviously we don't know how liberal these these consular officers are going to interpret this and how many exceptions they're going to grant, but these are all the types of arguments that I would make.
Love it. And that's probably why people call you, right, Justin?
Yeah.
Let's see. Gabrielle says, for H-1B cap cases this year filed consular notify, what is the path for those employees? Do they lose their H-1B registration?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the answer is no. They have a couple options, and we're kind of starting to go into the weeds, which I don't mind. But I think for these folks, what you'd want to do is take a look at their underlying visa status to see if, maybe they can leave and activate their H-1B after the proclamation is over. So sometime in 2021, presuming that it's not extended. And if they're running out of time and they have to activate their H-1B, what I would look at is, getting the case approved and then, possibly doing it as a change of status, refiling the case. It's obviously more money, but it's more money for the company, but it's a way to kind of get the person back in the H-1B status and kind of, there are workarounds to this, I would say.
Awesome. And we have people that are joining. I mean, all the time. We're up to 70 something people right now on LinkedIn alone, with another 8 on Facebook. So you're going to get a couple of repeats here. So I know you bill by the hour, but bear with me. Okay.
I'll just send the bill to you, right?
Yeah, please do. Please do. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Mary Ellen Tratina, do you see this trend with the visas extending into 2021?
Yeah, so I mean, what I would say is that, as a similar question before, I think it really depends upon the result of what happens in November. I think that there has been a lot of pushback from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and other various trade organizations, not just in tech, but in manufacturing and pharmaceuticals as well. Companies that rely on H-1Bs and O-1s and L-1s, to just notify to the White House that a lot of industries depend upon highly skilled workers. I think that if Trump wins again, I think that there's going to be kind of more chipping away at highly skilled immigration in the U.S. What we've seen with a lot of our clients is, if it's going to be harder to kind of attract talent, and retain talent in the U.S., they're going to go to Canada, or they're going to go to other countries. They're going to go to APAC. And if I think if Biden wins the election, I think that there's probably going to be more of a push for comprehensive immigration reform. Probably an overhaul of the immigration system, not only on the business side, but also kind of the asylum and removal side as well, the family side. So I think we're kind of at a fork, a fork in the road. It could either go one way, where it gets a lot more restrictive and businesses are really looking elsewhere outside of the US, or we could go the other way, to where we realize that 50% of Fortune 500 companies are founded by immigrants, and we want to be a country that embraces innovation and folks with PhDs and we want entrepreneurship, and I think that's kind of the question that we're facing in the US right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? We were a country founded by immigrants, for the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And, it's a great position to be in when the entrepreneurs of the world want to come to your country to pursue their dream. Right. And frankly, that is our greatest resource is that dream, and I don't think we want to compromise or tarnish that. But hey, that's just me, right?
Yeah,
it's just a dude on the podcast. It's just a dude on the podcast. Lauren Lene, how does this affect L1 applications that are in process where visa has yet to be issued?
Yeah. So if the L1 is going through the USCIS, it's not going to be impacted. If the application, is you prepare everything and you were preparing to submit an L1 application at an embassy, when the embassy's open, those L1s are going to be impacted. And again, and I mentioned this before, we don't know how this proclamation, is going to impact Canadians, because the proclamation specifically says anyone who's applying for a visa at an embassy. So Canadians are visa exempt, so they don't have to have visas in their passports. So it could turn out that, and we haven't gotten guidance from U.S. Customs and Border Patrol yet, but it could turn out that the L's and the H's for Canadians are fine, and those folks can get in. So it just really depends upon Laurent, how the application, where it was submitted, and then ultimately the citizenship of the person.
We got a ton of great comments coming in here. I'm going to encourage everybody to hit that like button right now so people know we're live here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Let's see here. We've got some folks coming in here asking actually about something you just said before. Ken Nickel Lane, election goes to Biden. Does he kill this executive order immediately? Is that his mechanism?
Yes, it is. So, I mean, I can tell you that I think what happens is, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I think there's going to be a transition team that kind of gives him a blueprint of how to undo all the executive orders. This isn't the first one that have occurred over the past 3.5 years. So what I can see Biden doing is going through and just undoing all the executive orders on the immigration side that Trump has put in place over the past 3.5 years, and I think he could do that on within the first few days.
Carrie Stewart offering more advice to our listeners here. Don't need a JD to offer that advice. Vote. Georgia Angle, would you expect any change to this if there is enough pushback from industry?
So it's interesting. So I had corresponded with some folks from Compete America, and also we work with our clients who are involved in a lot of trade industries. It's not just technology, it's from all industries. And we worked with our clients to sign off on an industry letter that was sent to the administration. And despite kind of the biggest companies in the U.S., literally the biggest companies in the U.S. had signed on this letter and sent it to the White House, this was still done. So I think that there are forces that are pro-business and pro-entrepreneurship and understand the value of highly skilled workers. And then I think that there are other forces that are maybe a little more,
less nuanced.
Yeah, well, I was going to say fringe, who truly believe that any H-1B is a job that's being taken away from a U.S. worker. And statistically, you look at, kind of the data, and that's just not the case. So I think unfortunately here, what happened is that kind of wing had won this argument. But as far as the industry, there was a lot of pushback over the past month from the industry. The letter that I saw that was submitted to the administration, it was the biggest companies in the U.S. Like everyone basically had signed it. So I think it was, as much as could have been done was done. So I think hopefully that continues.
Let's see here. Another question along those lines. Does the audience and/or Justin have a feel about our U.S. talent pool filling jobs that companies might hire from overseas? Justin, I think you've been kind of clear about your position on this. What do our viewers think? Please let us know in the comments. I mean, do you think that the U.S. talent pool has the capability, the competency, the inclination to fill these jobs that companies might hire from overseas? Again, just to be specific here, we are talking about highly skilled jobs. Justin, can you tell us a little bit more about what what is considered highly skilled jobs?
Yeah, so it's obviously there's been a lot of and my space is tech, so I'll kind of talk about that second. But there's been a lot of articles published and a lot of data in terms of I'd say the doctors and nurses. There's just not enough in the U.S., especially in rural areas. So what we've seen over the years is there's been a lot of folks who are brought in on H-1Bs. Foreign doctors are necessary to like a lot of hospitals, whether they're in urban or rural areas. So I think that's one industry. But as far as the tech industry and kind of the STEM industry itself, I'd say historically as a country we don't produce a lot of STEM workers. Whether it's culturally or whether it's something that we just haven't invested in over the past 20 years. My generation wasn't, STEM wasn't pushed, and I think we're changing that. But in terms of technology and artificial intelligence and kind of all the drivers in the current economy, I think the fact is we just don't have enough of those workers to fill all these jobs. Whether it's in San Francisco, in New York, Texas. I work with a lot of recruiters, a lot of talent acquisition. What they tell me is there's just not enough U.S. workers to fill these jobs, and of course they don't want to spend $25,000 on U.S. immigration for somebody. It actually costs more to hire and to employ somebody on a visa. So
yeah, they're spending $25,000 with your process. They're spending another $20,000 with my process, moving their household goods here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the relo all together, and then they're going to gross it up. I mean, you're spending $75,000 probably to relocate these people from overseas. If you could just walk down the street and hang a shingle and you had 5 applicants at your door, you would do that all day long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not even a valid argument in my opinion, but hey, I'm just a guy with a podcast. We got some people chiming in here. Not a chance. Unfortunately not. We're not finding the people with the necessary qualifications, even in accounting. Carrie L. Stewart, if they were, companies wouldn't be going to the great expense of relocating international employees. Bingo. Yes, agree. Now, maybe we're preaching to the choir here because this is a relocation and global mobility show, but I mean, come on, Do you have any other thoughts on that, Justin?
No, I mean, I was just going to say that this very, this very argument is kind of what drove the current executive order. And there's a lot of people who believe that there is enough, U.S. talent and U.S. workers here. And to be frank, I've engaged with a lot of them. I've had conversations with folks who teach at universities about this, and you agree to disagree, but I don't think there's a lot of statistical data on their side. I think that it's I think it's more anecdotal, on our side. So
yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, we have enough bodies, but they don't have the skills. I mean, that's there's a difference. Let's see here. We got some folks asking some good questions here. John Krish says, is food supply meaning seasonal migrant workforce?
Yeah. So anything that would disrupt our ability to, produce food, continue with the food supply chain. I mean, I'm here in, the DMV area. So my example is always, the crabbers, the short-term, folks that companies bring in to help with the crab industry, and if there's a shortage with regards to that, and we're not able to produce, crabs for that industry, that I would say that's an example of something that could break up the food supply chain.
What about just like agriculture, like, picking strawberries, picking fruit, ranching, any of that stuff? I mean, does that qualify as well?
Yeah, I would say it would. You could make the argument.
Sure. And then Lynn Griffiths asks, do you think that the exemptions that were do you think that the exemptions and were left with a broad definition specifically to allow flexibility?
So I think that kind of the last sentence, which is the catch-all, anything that would help, the economy rebound. Um, I think that's kind of the catch-all, and I mean, again, I think it's up to the individual and the attorney to make that, to make that argument. If the person's going to be applying for a visa, that their specific company that's sponsoring them and their position, will help the U.S. economy recover from the COVID-19. So I think it's a catch-all. The question is how our officers, consular officers, going to interpret this, and how broadly are they going to apply it? Are they going to apply it narrowly, or are they going to grant lots of exceptions? We just don't know yet.
And with things like this, Justin, in your experience, have you seen the interpretations vary over time, or by geography, or by office?
I think some embassies are I'd say more liberal in their interpretations when granting visas. I think that there are certain embassies that are kind of notorious for being more difficult. I think a lot of the embassies in the U.S. embassies in India have been notoriously difficult, with a lot of the visa categories. So I could see that maybe regionally it applies. Maybe some countries it's easier. The consular officers are trained a little bit differently. But I think the bottom line is we just don't know yet. I mean, we're going to have probably 4 or 6 weeks until we know how whether it's going to be how broadly or narrowly it's going to be applied. And until we start kind of hearing some anecdotes and some sample cases that are coming out from our colleagues, or even within our own firm, we just don't know yet. So,
cool. Hey, dumb question, but I mean, if I live in India and the consulate there is more difficult, could I go to another country to apply for a visa?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Always look for an angle here, Justin.
Yeah. So you can't forum shop. In other words, if you think another embassy is going to be easier than the other, you can't go there. That's called forum shopping. You have to generally, whenever you go to an embassy, you have to demonstrate your ties to that area. So if you live in India but you want to go to a U.S. embassy in, say, Frankfurt, you'd have to demonstrate that maybe you have family there, or you have some sort of ties to that particular geographic area before you can apply at that embassy.
Got it. People have thought of this. All right.
Oh yeah, people think about it all the time. So
comment here: much more extra work to be done and no guarantees for approvals. If L2 visas are denied, family relocations will be on hold. Do you foresee this happening, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody had brought up the question before. They had an L1 who's in the US, and the family member was going to go apply for their L2. I mean, it's a reality. The proclamation specifically says it's not just that it applies to the principal, but also the dependents as well. I don't really know the point of doing this. They could have carved out an exception to say that if one family member is in the US, then they would allow in the other. But I don't think this administration has been particularly kind to any sort of immigrant. So there is no carved out exception. So I would say in a situation like this, if you have somebody who's here already and you had a trailing spouse who is maybe going to wait a couple months, unfortunately, I do think that they would be caught up in the proclamation, and then you would see family separation, and then as this person says, like the family relo would be put on hold then.
Which obviously has a lot of implications for the people watching this right now. When we look at, international relocations and assignments have already been difficult enough with COVID and border closures and the things like that. I mean, gosh, a lot of people in our industry say we're down 40% for the year, and of course, we're only halfway through. You know, I can't imagine what this is going to do to folks as well. We've got a question actually along those lines from Molly. Let's see where you went, Molly. And she says, will this executive order indirectly impact U.S. citizens who want an assignment overseas?
Yeah, it will not. But I did. It's funny because this afternoon I did see a headline that the European Union was thinking about banning U.S. citizens due to kind of the COVID-19 spread and the fact that we've, kind of our levels and the fact that we haven't been able to get it under control. So maybe not by this proclamation, but maybe because of COVID-19 restrictions.
Well, you would think if you didn't want to import skilled workers, you definitely wouldn't want to lose them. I mean.
Well, I think that's going back to kind of the industry. The industry pushback is that the industry letter that was submitted had all these arguments, and one of the main arguments is that we want to be a talent magnet and we want to be the center of entrepreneurship, and we don't want artificial intelligence and kind of the next generation technologies to be developed in China. We want to be developed here, and by doing this is really kind of pushing folks away. And we've seen it. I've seen it. I didn't see it as I was expecting to kind of see it on day one, but I'd say we do these client visits and we sit down with foreign nationals who are on visas. And I'd say by year 2, we started getting questions about, going to Canada and relocating to Vancouver, which is, a gorgeous city. And just more and more questions about, wanting to go to Canada or leaving the US. We work with a company I work with a lot of various size companies with, 40, 50,000 global employees to companies with 5 employees. So, kind of runs the gamut. But we work with a company that we're talking to the CEO a couple of weeks ago, and he's on an L, and we were talking about proceeding with permanent residency, and he said to us, "I'm done. It's too unpredictable here. Nothing can kind of get done. I don't trust what the government's going to do in terms of immigration," and he's leaving. So it's anecdotally, we're going to lose talent if we kind of continue on this path. But we've definitely seen a lot of very brilliant people want to leave due to kind of the uncertainty of the administration, or even the long green card backlogs for folks in the U.S., which can be over 20 years. So we're in a bit of a mess right now.
I want to play through this scenario, right? Because I think this is when it becomes real to people, right? Because I think a lot of times these issues are debated in the abstract, right? Yeah. But when we start to look at the actual individuals involved and the microeconomics of the situation, I think we can extrapolate the macroeconomic impact of this, right? So you have a person who's a CEO of a large company who says, you know what, I'm out. And he's going to take his personal income and wealth with him. He's going to take his family. He's going to probably, since he's the CEO now, also take the executive office with him to whatever country he decides is more suitable, right? And then if he takes the executive office, well, now they're direct reports. Where are they going to sit, right? And so then it becomes this ripple effect where you have an exodus of you're creating a brain drain in a way.
Yeah. So
it just frustrates me. Sorry.
Yeah, and this company, they were only 5 people, but again, at some point, all these companies, Amazon was 5, people at some point. You just don't know what these ideas will become, or what a company could be someday. So yeah, it gets a little frustrating, I would say.
Yeah, at one point it was Sergey and his boy over there just started Google, and just a couple of dudes with a search engine, and then it turns into Google, It's like George Meyer says, hello, how about people who work in the tax field?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be impacts, if your company sponsors folks on H's or L's, this could impact these individuals as well. And I think with the tax field, you'd have to make the similar argument in terms of and if you wanted to try to create an exemption that it would benefit the the U.S. economy and the U.S. recovery. So I don't think it would be too different.
Let's see, you got some really good stuff here. Viva from the I think you're in the Netherlands, right, Viva? Anyway, shout out to Viva. Checking in. Sylvia Ehrlich in New York. If application is at the point of embassy meeting, but been through the application process,
Yeah.
And then Canadians can come through on TN, right?
Yeah, Canadians can come through on the TNs, and as I said before in the talk, it's a bit of a gray area in terms of if this is going to impact TNs. Even if you have an H-1B or an L, because a TN doesn't have to have a visa. The question is whether the Canadians can just come in, and I think whether the administration kind of left this out or whether they forgot about it. I don't know the answer to that, but it appears as though maybe Canadians have a window right now.
What's up, Hosea, Michael? Let's see here. What else we got? Got some great stuff here coming in here. Pierre, hi there. Difficult times ahead, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Pierre goes on to ask a question that does not sound very light. Don't you think other countries will reciprocate this measure and prevent U.S. citizens relocating abroad?
So far, I don't think we've seen too many reciprocal measures. I mean, there's always the reciprocity in terms of the length of the visa stamps, in terms of what we allow for countries, and then they may turn around and kind of do the same. But as far as we practice, we're a global practice, so we have partners in over 100 countries around the world. So I can affirmatively tell you that other countries have not started doing this against us. Australia has kind of had some, kind of a tightening of the immigration policies, and I'd say that's been kind of the country of the biggest similarities so far. But so far, we haven't kind of seen sweeping changes on the immigration side. Just the U.S. has really been kind of the main country over the past 3 years.
Well, and they'd be spiting themselves to do that, right? I mean, they want to bring the best and brightest entrepreneurs from all over the world and skilled workers, so they're probably saying, hey, you're welcome here. I mean, isn't that what Canada did, a few years back? Like, hey, we're open,
yeah.
We're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the in Canada has made statements, and they have tried to kind of adjust their immigration laws so they can attract companies and entrepreneurs and talent. I just think that we've seen such a flux to go into Canada that they've had a lot of people want to relocate to Canada over the past 3 years.
Shout out to Elena. Greetings from the DMV. Hoping our economy can survive this executive order. Yeah, Elena's got a great immigration background. Hey, Elena. Rob Zeitz says, not only are we losing people in the talent pool, we'll see people here in the U.S. put in roles that aren't the best for them or their company or might be premature for them.
That's a great point.
Kind of the Peter principle there. It's like, hey, I couldn't get the person I wanted, so you're up. Good luck. I
mean, we have companies we have clients that are kind of talking about that exact point. If visa options are going to be limited, they're going to start kind of looking at localized talent, and I wouldn't say lowering standards, but kind of looking at different, educational backgrounds. And, I think companies can be inclusive, but I'm not so certain that, somebody with a bachelor's in art can be a computer programmer, unless they have enough training. So, but I would agree with that sentiment from Rob.
Well, and so I'll play devil's advocate here. This is not my position, but I'll take it in this argument, right? So if there is a lack of supply of skilled workers, but the demand remains high, then that vacuum may create enough of a pull to get those people to go take the classes or the certifications necessary to upskill them, right? I mean, that's probably the way this theory works. I mean,
yeah, no, I would agree with you. I just think it doesn't happen overnight.
Right. There's definitely a lag there, right?
Yeah, and and I think it's going to take a kind of a generation to kind of keep up and to push STEM and going out and taking classes and whatnot. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. So.
Well, and even if it takes 2 years, it takes 5 years, it takes 10 years. I mean, you think about the way the world is evolving right now, and the way society is evolving and technology is evolving. Imagine taking a 2-year or 5-year pause, right? I mean, you get lapped in 5 years. I can't imagine what's going to be out in 5 years. Let's see here. Having some last couple of comments here, and if you have any last comments or questions, let us know here. We are kind of running to the end of our hour. Pierre says, we already see U.S. families relocating to Switzerland. That includes owners of startups. We just had a conversation yesterday with a family with 5 kids out of D.C. Okay. And let's see here. Last comment here. Robert Mazel said, this is a very important discussion. I'm glad it's being had on Love and Real. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. And I'm really thankful to you, Justin, for being here with us right now, because today was a weird day. We were supposed to have somebody else. We were talking about something totally different, and then that fell through, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise because this happened, and I was like, you know what, this is kind of a blessing. Let's just go with this. Let's talk about this visa change. And Justin, you were so great about getting on right away, and shout out to Zara Nujum and Hiba over at Erickson as well on the West Coast. For recommending you. I appreciate it so much. I wanted to ask you if there was any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with our viewers today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of what I've been advising clients. I guess a couple points is take a look at your data, kind of evaluate and see who is impacted by this. I don't think this is kind of it's bad, but it's not going to shut down your immigration program. As I said before, you can still proceed with extensions, transfers, and whatnot. And then the final thing that I would say is that folks are nervous, and I think if you lead your program, now's the time to offer a lot of support, whether that's through your program or whether that's through your immigration provider. It's pretty jarring for foreign nationals. I've done this for 15 years, and people are I've never seen people so kind of nervous. So now's the time to kind of be a good colleague, lend your support, because a lot of people are very nervous right now. So that's kind of what I would close on.
Yeah, empathy. That's a great rule of thumb. Empathy and listening, which has kind of been a theme lately as we discuss allyship, as we discuss race relations in this country, just being empathetic and trying to understand where people are coming from and listening and being, kind of being that person that they can rely on for some allyship. Justin, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on Love and Real today, taking time out of your busy schedule as a managing director of Erickson Immigration Group in DC the day after this thing comes down. It's carving out an hour. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you so much.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everybody else. Stay tuned for Love and Real tomorrow. Stay tuned is probably the wrong call to action. Tune in tomorrow. We're talking to Paul DeBoer from WHR Group, president of WHR Group, relocation management company out of Milwaukee. And we've got some great stuff coming up the rest of the week. So thanks,